just this past week, or actually earlier this month, May 12th, the Texas Senate passed a bill in the middle of the night that would ban public school teachers from talking about racism, white supremacy, or current events. It's been going back and forth between the Senate, but if it passes, they fully expect, obviously, Governor Abbott, who just signed a law banning abortions after 6 weeks, we have every expectation that he's going to sign this into law. And this is all centered around the conversation about critical race theory, how critical race theory has become the big bad boogeyman for conservatives. I want to play a clip of Fox News discussing the origins of critical race theory in their own way, such as they can even be objective. But the second part of the video is substantive as they discuss the country being at a crossroads, and whoever wins on critical race theory has the ability to define America. Take a listen in.
The debate is very clearly laid out there, where you have supporters of critical race theory saying that it allows white people to empathize with minorities. And then opponents of it say that it is divisive and, quite frankly, unhealthy to look at everything through the lens of race. And, I was just thinking about a year and a half ago, we weren't talking about this. Nobody really knew what critical race theory was. And that's because it wasn't really called that. It was called diversity or anti-racism training. And if you speak out against that, well, then you're racist. And then certain things started to happen under the name of diversity and anti-racism training. And it was like getting rid of schools named after our founding fathers, or silly little things like Dr. Seuss no longer being a part of, Read Across America Day, and then more divisive things like reimagining our history and never looking at the positives that America has done to overcome all the racism of our past. So it's definitely become a very big debate, and you can see that the more people, the more parents are opening up to this idea, the more pushback you're starting to see unfold.
I listened this weekend to a podcast called The Arguments, done by the New York Times, and it takes an issue and then has two people debate it. Yeah. And so they debated this issue. So apparently, critical race theory is some academics come up with it in the 1970s, and it's sort of been bouncing along. But one of the arguments that was made against critical race theory is that it could be backfiring and actually making things worse. Yeah, I have been very open about. I think it's not going to come to any surprise to anybody that I think that is true, and I think that the way that we're sort of at a crossroads in the country right now, where Democrats and Republicans are defining our country in a very different way, right? There's a lot of Democrats who think that our nation is systemically racist. And then there's a lot of Republicans who think that the United States, the same country, is the most generous nation on the planet. And I think that we're at that crossroads right now, and the side who wins, it's going to be very important. And the way that we define the country, how we view this nation, plays into everything. And that's a big debate that's unfolding.
Sometimes I want to fight my producer.
Let me fix my face.
David.
Yeah, Georgia.
Woo, man, to have Barbie and Karen and Ken.
Barbie, Carrie, and Ken.
That's exactly what they were. Just sitting there talking about race is going to make racism worse. Yeah, for racist people, right? Yeah. Like if us discussing racism makes somebody more racist, then they were, of course, racist to begin with. And then to say that America is the most generous country in the history of the world, to who? White people? Okay, perhaps, but not even all white people. Rich white people. Yeah,
rich white people. Yeah.
It is an amazing experience. If you're a rich white person in America, this is the greatest country in the history of humanity. But if you're not a rich white person, and God forbid you're a black person, how has this country ever been generous to anybody? We had to people had to die to get just a little bit of justice that we get in this country. Like, our bodies are like laying in the streets. All of our heroes, all of our martyrs, just martyred by this country in order for us to get the little bit of change that we got. And now you got people like Governor Abbott, who's trying to sign into law to get rid of it because, they have a new, every now and then, Georgia and James, they come up with a new big bad wolf, right? Years ago, I think this is before a lot of y'all probably even were into politics. It was Acorn. Acorn was the big thing. Everybody's talking about Acorn being this organization that was being run by the socialists and da-da-da-da. That was a big bad wolf then. And then come along, they always find something every other year to be terrified of in order to stop us from getting any progress. That clip was a little triggering for me. What you think, Georgia and James?
Man, a little triggering. And I think this is a thing. Like you said, you talked about racism and like, oh, race theory, it ignites racism even more. No, like, let's be real. We're talking about truth here.
Truth.
And it's not just about us talking about racism. It's us talking about truth. It's us acknowledging the history of our country. And when I was listening to that clip, it was like, what the fake news? And we've been dealing with fake news since Christopher Columbus. Since the inception of this country, you look back at what this nation was founded on. This nation was founded on oppression. This nation was founded on racism. This nation was founded on white supremacy, white individuals coming here feeling like they were superior and that it was their duty and their responsibility to civilize a people who had culture, who had their own way of life that worked. And now, even looking back, we have a lot of indigenous people here in Minnesota, and you look at some of the things that they do traditionally, and it's actually a lot better for you. Like their ways of healing are way better than the Western European standard of medicine, and so many fronts. And then when you look at the anti-Blackness that is so embedded in what they were just saying, I wonder who gave them the caucasity to have this conversation about race theory without inviting a Black person and getting their perspective. And so that is why, especially when you have media entities that are accused of being biased and one-sided, it's because you have three white individuals who have the caucasity to have a conversation about race theory and its place in public schools without inviting a Black person to the table to interject their perspective. I mean, even if they would have invited Candace Owens, at least some credit.
At least it's somebody
trying to make it balanced.
That's what I was gonna say. Because you know who they're gonna invite. They're gonna invite some.
They didn't even do that. They didn't even try. And so while they want to talk about why our kids should be learning or not learning about race theory, we should be asking ourselves, why are our kids learning about Christopher Columbus? Like he was a hero.
Yeah. Go ahead, James. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's absolutely right. And I mean, and in Georgia, of course, I think it was Newton County or one of the counties here last week. They met with the parents of students to discuss this theory because, of course, it's trickling down across the country and people are signing stuff in the laws undercover in the secret at night that nobody knows about. So it happened here. And, of course, in Georgia, those people showed up and, of course, they got it kicked out of school so they wouldn't get it talked about. And if you would have looked at the audience, I think 100% Caucasian.
Listen, you're never going to let, nobody wants to hear the truth being told by people who have been hurt by them. Right? Oppressors never want the oppressed to tell the history. Somebody shared an African proverb with me, and it says, until the lions learn how to write history, the story will always be told by the hunters. And very similarly, right? You just have to take into context. Of course, the people who are the beneficiaries of America as it is right now, they do not want the history told from the vantage point of the indigenous populations of Native Americans. Of course not, right? History told from the Native American perspective is America is a bloody, barbaric, savage nation built on the bones and the blood of their ancestors. Right? Let this narrative be told by Black people, then obviously we understand that this America is a bloody, barbaric, savage nation built on the bones and bloods of our ancestors. Right? Let this narrative of America be told by working people around the country, no matter where, like poor people, then it is America is a bloody, savage, barbaric nation built on the labor of our ancestors. This country, the powerful never want the narrative to be told by the powerless. And right now, you have a bunch of people who, and it's the ironic thing, James Baldwin was really good at this. He always put it into context. He's like, it's really sad. Like, I'm paraphrasing, obviously. He said, it's really sad for poor white people who really take up these narratives and they help they helped sustain the oppression against black people. He said it's sad, basically, and I'm paraphrasing, like I'm taking, from a lot of his different speeches, but he said it's sad because at the end of the day, this system oppresses them too. And the only real true benefit that they get out of America is basically that they are white, but they are oppressing the system too, because this country wasn't built for poor white people. It was built for wealthy, aristocratic white people, land owning white men. Right. And so it's really it's sad because they feel as though those people that you're talking about in that town hall here in Georgia, James, they are out here championing the pulling critical race theory out of the schools. But it's hurting them in the long run. The only thing they get to do, think of it this way. The only thing they get out of this is, at least we didn't have to talk about racism. Yeah, but you are like, you're dying of diabetes and cancer, and you're paying an obscene amount in rent, and you haven't gotten a pay increase in 30 years, and all of these other things that are part of this system. As much as racism is a part of this system, they are destroying you, but you can't see it because, like James Baldwin said, at least they're not black. So it's a game that's played over and over again. And there's a lot of useful idiots who are of the Caucasian persuasion who really, they really fall into this trap. They don't want to talk about racism because they have to see America as this great nation. But hey, America was built on the bones and the labor of y'all ancestors. Matter of fact, some of y'all got to go to work at the corner store right now for $7 an hour. And you still out here talking about how great America is. And it's because they cannot tolerate having a conversation that actually makes them have to reflect that their ancestors did a lot of savage stuff. Got to catch myself, a lot of savage stuff, and that we have to undo it now. So anyway, this is that clip. I want to play one more clip before we move the conversation, and it has to do with Nicole Hannah-Jones. She was denied tenure at UNC, and she's one of the writers, one of the journalists who put together the 1619 Project for the New York Times, and it really gives a historical account of this country from the perspective of oppressed people, from slaves or enslaved people since 1619, and it shows how deeply rooted the 1619 Project shows how deeply rooted oppression, slavery, and racism and white supremacy are in this country. And this is Fox News's response. This is a really short clip of Laura Ingraham mocking Nicole Hannah-Jones, who did phenomenal work, but she's literally been denied tenure at UNC because of the board of directors there. The board, they got together, not the faculty approved, but the board got together and said, because of all this stuff that's going on with critical race theory, all this stuff that's going on with the pushback from conservatives, they therefore denied her tenureship. Let's take a look.
19 Project creator Nicole Hannah-Jones thought she was on her way to a tenured position at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Well, until conservative groups ripped the school for hiring her in the first place. And today, the school's board of trustees backed down and declined to offer her tenure. So if you feel like you don't have any power to change the left's cultural takeover, take this as a lesson. You can, and you will. Gutfeld next.
Look. Come back to the 3-shot. I ain't got nothing else to say about it. Like, she celebrated that. She literally defined the problem precisely correct. And then she celebrated as it was as a victory. I got nothing to say about it.
I mean, are we surprised though? Are we surprised? Because
Facts.
this is the resistance. This is how the anti-blackness continues to show itself. It's like we go an inch and then they take a mile.
Yeah.
And so I am not surprised. And I think that this is a time where we have to continue, again, going back to what I said earlier, to stay centered in hope, because when you hear these messages of how someone does something so accurate and precise and historic, something that I think you could put in a time capsule and open up in 100 years and it would be a jewel, it would be a gem. And it's almost like you are penalized for doing it. I think that it starts to weigh on your psyche of, will we ever get the change that we're seeking in our lifetime? And it can be hard to keep hope to see people penalized for things that you think that are great, great contributions. So I am not surprised, but we have to, I think, also uplift those who are standing up for us. We have to position those who are uplifting us for opportunities within our own community, reach out, because if we leave it up to this system, they are going, and we saw this historically, even going back, right? History repeats itself. Look at the leaders of the civil rights movement who were assassinated, who were jailed, who were wrongfully accused of things. And so we know that those who stand on truth and speak out and make these contributions for change, they are going to be the first ones who are ridiculed, criticized, tore down. And so we have a responsibility within our own community to lift those people up and give them the acknowledgement that they so deserve.
Whew. Yeah, James, you're about to get in there. Cause man, that's a lot, man. That's a lot, bro. You want to let? Because man, bro, the way they celebrate, they outright just celebrate the wrong thing, as clear as day. She celebrated that like it was like they had a great victory. And I'm telling you, like that level of insidiousness, that's right where this country will fall apart, because they absolutely believe what is good is bad and what is bad is good. They believe that night is day and that day is night, that the sky is green and the grass is blue. They think they live in the upside down, and they have to sustain that. They have to sustain that level of ignorance, because if they ever engage in these conversations in good faith, they would have to look at the history, not only from the lens of their glorious Christopher Columbus and their glorious founding fathers, but they also have to look through the lens and compare it to the history as told by the people who were murdered and massacred by those people. Anyway, well,
and then they have to pay reparations.
Come on, somebody. I wish you had the foghorn right there. I wish you had. I wish we had it ready. I wish we had. Say
they don't
it
want to
again.
do that.
They don't.
They don't want to pass up that wealth that they've included, in their inheritances that's been passed down generation after generation. They don't want to give that up. And so that's what is at stake here. I think even as simple as race theory in classrooms, the more people get educated, the more people are aware of what's happening, the more the messaging is unified about the truth of what this nation was built on, the more that the next generation will demand accountability and reconciliation and reparations.
Yeah. Say that again. Just say that first part again for us, Georgia. They need to give us
about the reparations.
Say what that. We just because you know that's absolutely right. It needed a little amplification there. All right, folks, we're gonna take it over to the
Sam
after party.
Cooke, it's been a long time coming, but a change gonna come.
It really
Change gonna, it's gotta come, man.